The Longines Hong Kong International Races is just 2 weeks away, and the build-up towards Hong Kong racing's biggest event gained further momentum on Wednesday with the announcement of the selected runners across all 4 races, which combined are worth $93 million. Here's what's coming up on this edition of HK Direct, and we're going to be taking a close look at all 4 races, which pit the best of Hong Kong racing up against proven Group 1 competitors from 6 different countries. David Morgan from the Hong Kong Jockey Club joins me this week on HK Direct. Dave, good to have you in the studio. Great time of year to be here in the world of Hong Kong racing. Last Sunday we got to see the best that Hong Kong has to offer, and now we've got an understanding of what their international competitors will be like on the big day in December.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be another great race day, the second Sunday in December here in Hong Kong. Fantastic Group 1 races, and I think everyone's really looking forward to it. Indeed
we are. Let's start off then with the first of the 4 features, the Longines Hong Kong Vase, the staying contest over 2,400 metres, which has got a full field of 10 international raiders, headed up by World Geese from the Andre Fabre stable, a dual Group 1 winner, up against Hong Kong horses like Pakistan Star, Riven, Eagle Way and Exultant are also amongst the local attack. And as we have a look at one of the international competitors, we'll have a look at Sadler from your part of the world, Dave. This is a horse who's only won twice in his career, but he's run a number of big races at the top level, including this run in the Coronation Cup, where he really gave Cracksman a run for his money.
Yeah, this was a really game effort. Cracking ride by Sylvester de Sousa. Cracksman is European champion, and he really put him to the test here. Ground, there was a little bit of give in it. Epsom's a tricky track, but Salowin just loved it. He bounced along in front, and Cracksman really had to work hard to peg him back and just win it at the wire. You take this run and you combine it with that really good 6th he just ran in the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, where Oisin Murphy rode him. He had a little bit of trouble in running, and you've got to think that he's coming in here with a really good chance.
Absolutely, and only a few lengths off Enable too, so that is world-class form that he's bringing on his day.
Exactly, and I mean, before this race, or just after this race, he ran against Valgeist in France, and Valgeist beat him. On that, you'd think Valgeist is the better horse. With Valgeist, you're looking at that Breeders' Cup run, and that's a big red flag. He was beaten so far. He looked a bit like a tired horse. There's got to be a question mark over Valgeist, whereas Salowin, he just seems to come out and run a game race more times than not.
When you have a look at the history of the Vase too, we'll have a look at the last few winners, but in general, only 2 Hong Kong trained horses have won this race. Indigenous in the late 90s, more recently, as you can see, they're dominant. It's a race that's been a happy hunting ground for the overseas raiders.
Yeah, sure. You're talking about 20 overseas runners winning it, as opposed to, I think, 2 Hong Kong and 2 Japanese. So the European raiders have had the lion's share of the wins. This year, it looks like a real good race all round, and we've got some good Hong Kong performers in there. If Pakistan Star decides to turn up and run like we know he can, he's a big chance. Eagle Way put up a big performance last time. It really looks like a cracking race this time around.
I know it's 2 weeks away, but at this point in time, would you be more going the internationals or the home side for the Vase?
It's a tricky one. Again, it comes back to Valgeist. If Valgeist comes in freshened up and has travelled well, he looks like he has the class to be a little bit better than the rest, but take him out, and if he's a little bit below his best, it's a wide open race.
The Hong Kong Sprint's a race that the Hong Kong horses have a much better record in compared to the Vase. They're pretty tough to beat the home side in this race. And the 3 highest rated horses going into this year's Hong Kong Sprint are the horses who won the 3 Sprint Group 1s in Hong Kong last season. Victory, Mr. Stunning, who won the Hong Kong Sprint last year, and DB Pin, who won the Centenary Sprint Cup back at the end of January. The overseas horses, we've got Fine Needle from Japan, Sir Dancelot flying the flag for the UK, and Lim's Cruiser from Singapore. But Japan is where we're going to head for our look at an international raider coming into this race. It's Fine Needle, David. We've seen him come here before. 4 from 4 in Japan this year, including their 2 big sprint races. This is his run in the Sprinters Stakes, his win, which you were there on hand to see.
This was a good performance. He's a horse that doesn't always break too quickly. He gets a little bit outpaced at times in the race, but he always has a really strong finish, and you see this off the turn. There's a little bit of a rise here, and he really digs deep and powers up the rise. He's a horse that, from seeing him previously, and when he ran 4th in the Chairman's Sprint Prize in particular, he looked a stronger horse this day. He looked like he had matured, and that's what the trainer said. So he comes in, I think, a slightly different proposition to what we saw back in April when he was fourth in the Chairman's Sprint Prize. I think he's a better horse. The question is he that much of a better horse that he can then come and match the best of the Hong Kong sprinters?
Because when you look at that run on the Chairman's Sprint Prize, it was a game effort, but he was still 4 lengths off victory.
Exactly, and the thing about that run is if you watch it back, he kind of doesn't make ground. He keeps going pretty much at the same rate, whereas a horse like Beat the Clock comes past him, victory goes away from him. So he definitely has to step up. But looking on that performance and what the trainer has said about his maturity, you'd think he's more of a winning proposition this time.
Since that day in April, there's been an up-and-coming sprint star here in Hong Kong. Hot King Prawn, 9 from 10, 3 from 3 this season in all 3 of the traditional Hong Kong lead-ups towards the Hong Kong Sprint. Is he the one they're going to have to beat in a couple of weeks' time?
I think it's a brave man that says he's not. He's certainly done everything right. Strictly speaking, of course, the last run he was getting £5 from the Group 1 winners. He's got that to contend with this time. But he just keeps improving every race. He's no nonsense. He gets out in front. He does what he's supposed to do. He's very professional. So I think he is certainly the one to beat.
Okay, that's the sprint. On to the mile, and Hong Kong's reigning horse of the year, Beauty Generation, will try to make it back-to-back wins in this race and emulate the likes of Monopolise and Good Barber as a multiple winner of the Longines Hong Kong Mile. It's a pretty even split numbers-wise as far as the amount of local horses up against international horses. Overall, a field of 13 to line up in the Group 1 over the mile. Let's have a look at a horse from Japan that I know you're quite keen on. You've been a fan of Persian Knight for quite a while. This is his most recent run in the Mile Championship, a race that he won in 2017 and was only narrowly beaten in this year.
Yeah, this was a cracking effort. He doesn't quite get the run of the race here. He has to just check slightly, and William Buick's horse leans into him all the way to the line. He's a horse that is really game. He doesn't have that real sharp electric turn of foot, but he definitely quickens, and he's a strong finisher. I personally think that he might be better at 2,000 metres. I've followed him since he was placed in the Satsuki show a couple of years back, or last year, 2017. And he's a horse full of quality. Whether he's good enough to match and beat Beauty Generation, time will tell, but he's certainly a genuine, bona fide Group 1 horse. Stelvio,
who William Buick rode, as you mentioned, won that race. He looks like a nice up-and-coming 3-year-old as well, too. So that form looks pretty solid.
The form looks very solid. That's a pretty strong mile race that we've just seen there.
You mentioned Beauty Generation. He's our reigning horse of the year here in Hong Kong. He's made a brilliant start of the season, 3 from 3. He's going to be tough to beat for any of these internationals, isn't he?
Very tough to beat. I mean, that performance that we saw at the weekend was sensational. To do what he did, to quicken away, to beat Good Barbar's track record, and to drift across the track the way that he did, he's looking more and more like he's something special. And if you think last year the talk was, is he really a champion, or is he just a horse that's getting lucky? He's proving this year, there's no doubt, he is top class. And a win here would take him another step to that world recognition that he looks like he deserves.
Well, let's put that into greater context. We've got the Longines World's Best rankings, World's Best Racehorse rankings up on screen there too. Cracksman Winks up the top, Gunrunner just behind them, then Poet's Word, Roaring Lion. He's alongside of Exhilarate and also Crystal Ocean. That's strong company that he's in.
It is strong company, and I would argue that if he keeps on winning, he deserves to leapfrog a couple of those, certainly. I think there are a couple of those that are, in my opinion, a bit too high.
He does look like a horse too that's even better than what he was last year, and what he's done this season certainly suggests that. Hong Kong's richest race though is the Hong Kong Cup over 2,000 metres. Here's a lineup, a field of 11 with the internationals coming from the UK as well as Japan with a 3-strong attack on the race, and can't forget Azara, the Irish Raider, as well too. The horse you've picked out for us to have a look at though, Dave, is Sungrazer. Comes out of a very strong race that he most recently contested. This is the Tenno show at Tokyo. The Magic Man Joe Moreira was on board. He didn't win, but this was a very strong race and he was only just short in it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. This was a strong field. He digs down, he knuckles down, he really strides for his jockey and tries his hardest. He's only just touched off by a very good horse here. And he came in off this race off a good win in the Sapporo Keenan, and they're actually the only 2 races he's run so far at 2,000 metres. He was winning over a mile earlier in the season, beat Mozo Ascot, then ran 5th to that horse in the Yasuda Keenan. He's a very good horse, Sungrazer, and if you take this form into the Hong Kong Cup, if he reproduces that, then you're struggling to see anything beating him, really.
So he's a horse who's yet to win a Group 1 level, but he's still only a 4-year-old up-and-coming type. Do you think the best is ahead of him and that he is capable of winning at the elite level?
I think so, looking at his profile. That step up from shorter distances coming into the 2,000, I think this is his ground. This is where he wants to be, the 2,000 metres, possibly further.
So 3 horses in it for Japan. They've won it 5 times, including more recently with HKIR and also Morris. Sungrazer, Deirdre, Stefanos are their representative in this year. How do you line the 3 of them up?
I see Sungrazer as being the pick. Deirdre, the filly's interesting, actually. She, on the balance of it, you'd say her form's not quite good enough. If you take, for example, a 3rd in the Dubai Turf earlier this year. But at the same time, if you look at the form around her with Lise Gracieux, Crocosmia, you're looking at that form ties in quite nicely with some of the boys, and she wouldn't be too far away.
I know with the 3rd in the Dubai Turf, it's perhaps a slight negative, as you allude to, but does that at least give you the confidence that you know that she can travel and run well overseas?
Well, it seems that experience, when a horse does travel, it stands them in good stead the next time for a large majority of them that travel around the world. So you'd think that she's learnt from that. The trainer and the staff will have learnt from that, so you would think she'll benefit from it, certainly.
You've been working here in Hong Kong for a number of years now, covered our biggest races for the last few years this decade. When you look back at past renewals of the Hong Kong international races, is there a moment that stands out in your time here?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. There have been quite a few. Ambitious Dragon would spring to mind. That was a phenomenal achievement. Able Friend as well, when he won the mile. California Memories second cup. But I think, putting aside sentiment too much, I think Lord Canaloa, it was phenomenal what he did that second year especially. The first year when he came in and he did that blistering gallop on the Saturday morning and everyone went, he's just left his race behind. And he came out on race day and did it again and burnt them off. The year after, when he came back and proved that was no fluke, the way he smashed really good horses and just drew away for a record winning margin, it was phenomenal. I don't think you can overstate how good that was.
No, sitting 3 wide the trip as well too, so it's not like it's a cushy run or anything like that day. Dave, it's been terrific to have you in the studio previewing what we've got to look forward to over the next couple of weeks. Thank you very much for joining us.
Cheers, thank you very much.
Dave Morgan, our special guest in the studio for this edition of HK Direct. A couple of weeks to go until the Longines Hong Kong international races, but before then we've got a good meeting to look forward to this Sunday at Sha Tin. The first race is at 12:45. Trackside live coverage gets underway at 12:15. The Chevalier Cup also features Northern superstar, formerly known as Edict of Nantes, who will make his Hong Kong debut in the race before a potential tilt at the Hong Kong Cup. For more information, as always, you can go to the website where you'll be able to find all of David's work leading into the Hong Kong international races, and more on Twitter as well too at HKJC_racing. But that's it for this edition of HK Direct. Thanks for joining us. We hope to count on your company next time as we continue the build-up towards the Turf World Championships.